The Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas. The State Chamber AIA is the leading voice for business at the state capitol and serves as the primary business advocate on all issues affecting Arkansas employers. Our mission is to promote a pro-business, free enterprise agenda and prevent anti-business legislation, regulations, and rules. Now more than ever, business matters. Learn more at arkansasstatechamber.com.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. I'm David Goins alongside Roby Brock. We are now joined by our political long table on this late December Sunday morning. GOP strategist Bill Vickery with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, columnist John Brummett. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us this morning.
Thanks.
Good to have you with us. First question, kind of the news of the week was Lieutenant Governor Mark Darr before the Ethics Commission. We've seen the legislature look at an audit report that shows he's got misspent funds in his campaign office. The question everybody's kind of asking is, should he resign? I'll throw the question to you guys first.
I'll let John. Oh, well, in full disclosure, I've always considered Mark Darr a friend, but it's a tough week. This is a tough week, ending with now maybe the Pulaski County prosecutor looking at convening a grand jury. This is a rough one. Sometimes when you're in this position, he has no real desire to seek re-election, from what I understand. You might just hold out until you can cut the best deal possible and then resign. I don't want to doom the Darr Lieutenant Governor's office, but it's a tough week.
Well,
yes, I'm disappointing you, John, I can tell you.
The Lieutenant Governor's office is almost unworthy of a special election at this late date before general election. And the Lieutenant Governor, as I understand it, is the only constitutional office that a vacancy cannot be filled by a governor's appointment. We would have to have an election. And I say we just take our chances with, the only threat is that Mark Darr would become governor. I think we should take our chances with BB's good health, maybe keep him inside the governor's mansion until the duration of his term. And basically, I'm not as ominous about Darr's predicament as you. Basically, I buy what he said.
Yeah.
He just sort of figured that since this money in his campaign was money that was owed him, he could just go around and charging things to the campaign. It'd be 6 of one, half dozen of another. And he said he was ignorant of the law, which is no excuse, but ought to be good enough for Lieutenant Governor of Arkansas. We don't expect that much of a Lieutenant Governor of Arkansas. They needn't have great command of those sorts of things. I just don't. It's not a pie. It's not a
pie box situation.
It's not payola in a pie,
right.
Yeah.
And it's not buying a home entertainment system when you're unopposed with campaign contributions. It's bad. It's inexcusable, but it's.
So the lack of maliciousness maybe makes it a little more...
No, it's a matter of convenience. Do we want to have a special election for Lieutenant Governor at this juncture?
Well, there wasn't a special election when our Lieutenant Governor passed away in 2006.
Yeah,
so.
but there was when Mike Huckabee, when Jim Guy Tucker elevated to Lieutenant Governor. So there's kind of different precedents.
Well, I think there's a statute, which I was shown just this morning, that said there would be one. Maybe you could finesse it.
Well, I do. There is a political point to a special election. If the Lieutenant Governor does indeed resign at some point in time, depending upon when that is, I'm with John. We're 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 months away from a general election to have a new Lieutenant Governor. The politics say this, though. You've got a very well-funded Democratic candidate now seeking the Lieutenant Governor's office for the 2014 general election. I sure think he'd love to have a special election against maybe a poorly funded Republican candidate. Republicans, on the other hand, say, this is outstanding. Give us an opportunity to parade out a good candidate, and oh, by the way, show how Republican the state has gone when you see the trend in special elections for candidates, as we've seen up in Jonesboro and some other places.
The Republicans that are talking about running for Lieutenant Governor, though, are current office holders, and they'd be prohibited.
But I think you're saying the party thinks this would be good to have a special election and show some GOP strength.
Show some GOP. It would be. It's a special. It's a voter turnout election. It's a turnout that can be driven a lot by folks who don't like the status quo and maybe take that out on the National Democratic Party, but they take it out here in Arkansas.
So, Bill, is this a possibility, or are you looking at this as an eventuality? Like this is.
Well, it all depends on the current Lieutenant Governor, and I think maybe wherever what investigation or the Ethics Commission or whatever it turns out to be, wherever that ends up, I'm with John to some degree. we're close enough to a general election. As much as I love it, in the business, maybe one too many elections is one too many, but the politics are pretty dynamic. If you're John Burkhalter, the Democrat who's running unopposed now on the Democratic side, maybe you want a special because you're well funded right now.
And then you get on the ballot in November next year as Lieutenant
run
Governor
again, yes,
Burkhalter, and can still serve 2 terms.
Right.
But just to, I would say, just be clear on Darr. It's like Bookout in the sense if he does resign, he does because there's political pressure. There's really no mechanism to force him out of office.
No, it would just be, it sounds like it might be a matter of political reality and political convenience. But no, there's nothing other than his own sort of shame. And he's sort of less shamed than Bookout, a little bit, it seems to me.
It would be interesting, too, if this were just in a vacuum without the situation in Northeast Arkansas and Paul Bookout resigning from the state Senate. And I agree with John. It's not the same thing, but it might be close enough that you'll see a lot of Democrats begin to howl for a resignation based on political rationale.
Let's talk about the University of Arkansas. It's been a little bit through the ringer in the last couple of weeks with some legislative hearings, the audit, a little bit of quiet one day. Now everybody's going to get their say another day. Where do you think this thing kind of stands right now, John?
I think the worst thing that could have happened for the University of Arkansas was that people thought the legislature whitewashed them in that audit committee the other week, because now all the legislators are saying we did not. Yeah. Basically what they did, they didn't understand what they were doing, and they didn't mean to whitewash it. And now you've got them all coming out of the woodwork, sending letters to prosecutors, calling for grand juries. It's the worst thing that could happen. And the Democrat-Gazette has got its fingernails into this story, 2 front pagers today. Yeah. So it's not going away, and the developments that gave the appearance of a legislative insider whitewash, a bad development.
3 things. 1, if we had a bowl game to prepare for, I think the public would be less interested, but we don't. And so 2, to John's point, the Democrat-Gazette, there's an FOI situation in here where documents destroyed. And let me tell you, you want to get those folks on your bad side, as John and all of his colleagues there, they will pounce on you in a heartbeat and stick with it for a long period of time if it looks like you've skirted the FOI laws or if you've made some kind of maneuver to get around that and not release documents. And then 3, I'm completely with you. I think what you did then by sort of legislatively maneuvering the debate closed quickly, you left some members of the House and Senate who aren't without influence. And they don't care if they get football tickets, and they don't care. They were slighted in a grand way. They're going after some of their colleagues. Their colleagues have to respond. It just has perpetuated it. If right before Christmas, let's say that everybody from the university had to take a tongue lashing in a committee hearing, and it was pretty rough, but then you have Christmas and then it's over. Now it's going to go on beyond Christmas.
So they fired their PR guy, and maybe they needed somebody to guide him through this? Because I guess it was a legislature's decision to handle it the way they did.
I don't think the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville manipulated this outcome. I think they were sitting there expecting the 2 people, Chode and
Sharp,
to have to testify, to have their day. They did not. It was the legislature just mishandled the whole thing. Yeah. The effect, though, is rather devastating.
Well, here's my question, though. Are we going to learn anything more about this? I mean, we seem to kind of know all the facts of the case. We seem to know what's at work. And the prosecutor up there has already said no wrongdoing.
Except on terms of whether there was any a version of the FOI, no. If there was false testimony.
False testimony.
Yeah.
That would have taken place in Little Rock, and conveniently, he'd rather let Mr. Jegley handle that. And now Jegley, this is the most interesting thing. He's saying, well, I just might have a grand jury. We might look at Darr. We might look at this. And we might look at the other thing, whatever the other thing is.
Yeah.
So your grand juries, those are those. People get nervous when you convene a grand jury.
Yes, subpoenas have a weird effect on people. But I think to some degree, this really is a problem that could have been wrapped up nicely. We'll see. It is kind of funny. Can you imagine someone going to jail for lying to the Arkansas State Legislature? You chuckle about that, and we do. But hey, they're sworn in. And we had conflicting testimony within moments of one another.
Definitely.
So somebody had to be lying.
John Brummett, Bill Vickery, gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Look for these guys on the year-end show. That's next week. But coming up next after the break, we'll be speaking with State Representative Ann Clemmer. She talks about her decision to run for the 2nd Congressional District seat. I'm David Goins alongside Roby Brock. You have the Capitol View on Sunday morning on KARK.